Before we sink our teeth into the story, a quick heads up to our dark detectives. This episode contains discussion of poisoning, domestic violence, and trauma. Listener discretion is advised. If you or someone you know needs help, please reach out to the support resources linked in our episode notes. Welcome back, Dark Detectives, to another disturbing episode on Dead, Serious, and Sinister.
The podcast where darkness gets investigated with just enough sass to keep you awake.
This is Dead, Serious, and Sinister, and today we unravel a tale where love was weaponized and trust turned lethal.
Angela Craig, who she was.
Before the courtroom drama, before the poison, before the trial, it was just simply Angela, a 43-year-old mother of 6, choir director, marathon runner, devoted church member, and friend defined by her light. According to family and those who knew her best, Angela was bright, energetic, intelligent, always the one who showed up when others needed her. Whether that was cheering up a friend at the hospital or organizing a potluck dinner around Aurora.
She was the kind of woman who walked into a room and raised its volume and wouldn't raise hell, but someone turned the volume of her life all the way down.
Friends remembered her as someone who could instantly uplift a gloomy day. She was always there for you, said her friends, the kind of person who carried crayons and coloring books to hospitalized teens just to say, "I'm here."
And that smile used to feed and soothe people, was the same smile that made the poison easier to deliver.
In early March 2023, Angela began complaining of dizziness, nausea, vertigo, and fainting spells. She was hospitalized 3 times over 10 days. Hospital records described her as hopeful, resilient, but confused by those symptoms doctors could not diagnose.
She texted her husband, "I feel drugged." He shot back, "Just for the record, I didn't drug you. Super worried though."
That's chilling, not just in context, but in hindsight, that message wound public perception into a horror novel.
And in those final days, while Angela fought for answers, he deliberated over orders of arsenic and cyanide.
Family members testified she was the ultra-marathon runner of betrayal. She endured emotional wounds, stress, even infidelity, but no disease, journal entry, or dark period explains a syringe by her bedside or a Google search history filled with ways to kill undetectably.
She carried the chaos in silence, and in the end, that silence, believed by some to signal depression, it became the perfect tool for betrayal.
Her sister, Toni Kofod, told the court, "Her life was not yours to take. You have taken away our opportunity to grow old together."
People often forgive a stranger, but when it's your spouse, loyalty became obliteration. James Craig, the man behind the mask.
James Tolliver Craig, born and raised in Colorado, a man who, on paper, had it all: a stable career as a dentist, a large family, and standing in his Mormon community. But beneath that smile lurks secrets darker than the deepest dental cavity.
Because nothing says killer like flossing your teeth while plotting murder.
Professional life and reputation.
Craig was known as a meticulous dentist, respected by patients and peers alike. His office was spotless, his demeanor calm and collected. He even served as a church elder, a position demanding trust and moral uprightness. But behind closed doors, there were whispers of financial troubles and extramarital affairs.
The good doctor moonlighted as a deceiver, crafting not just dental crowns, but lies.
And just like a bad root canal, those lies seeped deep, causing pain nobody else could see.
Personality and psychological profile.
Court documents revealed Craig had a controlling, manipulative personality. He meticulously planned the poisoning over weeks, ordering arsenic online, researching euthanasia, and attempting to recruit his daughter into the conspiracy. Defense experts claimed he had no prior violent behavior, painting him as a man driven to desperation. But prosecutors portrayed him as cold, calculating, and devoid of empathy. Friends described him as charming but secretive, the kind of man who could smile in your face and stab you in the back.
Charm and control. The perfect recipe for a sociopath in a white coat.
And don't forget the killer's secret ingredient, toxic betrayal.
Personal life and relationships.
Married since 1999, James and Angela appeared to have a traditional family life, with 6 children and a shared church life. But private messages reveal multiple affairs and financial strain, a picture far from the perfect family Instagram. Court testimony uncovered his attempts to silence suspicion through manipulation, pressuring family members, lying to hospital staff, and even attempting to fabricate evidence.
The bigger the family, the bigger the lie. A man who wore the mask of a devoted father while poisoning the very heart of his home.
That's just not domestic terrorism, that's domestic horror.
James Craig was a man living dual lives, the respectable dentist and the cold-blooded killer. His background isn't just a story of failure, it's a cautionary tale about appearances, power, and betrayal.
And behind every smile might be a syringe waiting to strike.
The scene of the crime, timeline of poison and betrayal. Let's reconstruct the moments that turned a dinner time habit into a campaign of betrayal. This isn't a crawl, it's a crime scene walk, powered by court testimony, digital footprints, and venomous intent.
Because once it's unpacked, every shake, every Google search, every syringe becomes a step in his ledger of deceit.
March 1st to 6th, 2023. The shakes begin.
March 1st, Angela started complaining of nausea, dizziness, waking, disoriented. Tests came back inconclusive. Craig's behavior, texts surfaced, later showing Craig asking his mistress to meet hospital staff, his default deflection pattern. Shakes arrives. Protein shakes arrive at the house, labeled with preservatives by Craig, but the preservatives were arsenic and choking doses of tetrahydrolazine.
These weren't health drinks. These were hit kits disguised as smoothies.
And the kitchen became his crime lab.
March 7th through the 14th. Hospital visits and red flags.
Angela hospitalized 3 times. Near fall flat fainting episodes. Doctors chalked it up to vertigo or anxiety. Craig visits. He came in carrying an unmarked syringe, officially for just in case IV use. Sister reports she was tired, withdrawing, questioning reality.
The last time she brought protein powder, investigators later found a lonely, moldy scoop in the bag, never consumed.
Because once trust died, everything in that kitchen tasted like collusion.
March 15th, the final act.
Angela is sedated. Craig enters with a different syringe, identified later as containing potassium cyanide. Her condition instantly deteriorated, brain death declared. Craig's calmness through the chaos was unsettling. Motive discovered later: financial stress, extramarital affair, and control.
She fought to live. Official documents show she whispered prayers. He just stood and watched the life crumble beneath his hands.
A man who claims love while ordering cyanide. That's weaponized intimacy, dark detectives. Treat it like the horror it is.
Forensic details.
Toxicology. Arsenic, cyanide, and tetrahydrolazine. Levels exceeded lethal ranges, administered through multiple routes. The digital trail. Craig's phone logs showed midnight Amazon orders time before each shake episode. Physical evidence. Hospital cameras capture syringe transfers. Security logs trace circle back to his office.
Forensic details.
Toxicology: arsenic, cyanide, and tetrahydrolazine. Levels exceeded lethal ranges, administered through multiple routes. The digital trail: Craig's phone logs showed midnight Amazon orders time before each shake episode. Physical evidence: hospital cameras captured syringe transfers, security logs trace circle back to his office.
The case might have been invisible, but his tech and toxicology left a neon sign over his betrayal.
Because murdering your wife with an IV hit, it's not just premeditation, it's perverse perfection.
The investigation and system failures. Once Angela Craig's body went cold, what remained alive were the traces of betrayal. Google searches, Amazon orders, and hospital camera footage. The question was, who wasn't looking hard enough before?
Not the early doctors, not the hospital social worker, hell, not even the church, until family pressure forced the truth out.
Digital evidence, a trail of poison.
Investigators pulled emails and text messages that showed Craig researching arsenic, potassium cyanide, and euthanasia protocols as early as February 2023. His Amazon order history included large quantities of diatomaceous earth and potassium cyanide disguised as pet product labeling. He also searched arsenic detection and autopsy and how long does cyanide stay in body, not exactly common in law homework.
That digital footprint, it wasn't planning. It was prosecution evidence delivered on a neon platter.
And the supposed loving husband, he had a search history more toxic than the murder weapon.
Body cam style evidence, hospital security footage.
Hospital security cameras captured Craig bringing in unmarked syringes 3 separate times. Investigators seized phone logs timed with each injection and tracked shifts in medication deliveries and shake intake.
Invisible inside a sterile hallway, but every step served as a breadcrumb in the investigation.
Surveillance doesn't lie, it just sits there quietly until you make it speak.
Medical missteps and system failures.
Nurses called for psychiatric consults due to Angela's vague symptoms consistent with poisoning and anxiety, but hospital protocols defaulted to dismissals and sedatives. Staff failed to flag Craig's repeated access after Angela lost consciousness. A hospital internal review later confirmed protocols failures, allowing Craig to stay after his 3rd visit.
She was searching for answers, while the system searched for ways to ignore her.
Hospitals aren't just places of care. They can also be rooms of refusal when systems don't work.
Family pressure and legal action.
Angela's sister Toni demanded toxicology reports as soon as her sister was declared brain dead. An independent pathologist confirmed toxicology findings that detectives had initially dismissed as freak lab errors. Once the police had the full picture, search records, camera footage, email evidence, they obtained a search warrant for Craig's home and computers within 48 hours.
The only reason the system moved was because Angela's family forced it to. Otherwise, he'd still been the grieving husband moving through hospital walls.
Systems don't pivot, they only react when bruised by public pressure, and in this case, it came from pain.
Investigative lessons and system gaps.
No red flags triggered until after Angela died. No chemical panels, no forensic oversight, no re-evaluation of her mental health claims. Way too few cross-checks between hospital and law enforcement. Intelligence sharing existed on paper but not practice. Media's delayed coverage. Local outlets framed the story as community leaders' tragedy, long before toxicology confirmed murder.
This wasn't forensic failure. That was feature-length negligence.
They gave her sympathy, but only after it killed her.
Courtroom drama and sentencing. Justice served. The courtroom was packed with tension when James Craig finally faced his reckoning. Months of poison, betrayal, and shattered trust laid bare beneath harsh courtroom lights.
You'd think a dentist who poisons his wife would skip the drama and plead guilty, right? Nope, he played the grieving husband to the hilt.
The defense playbook.
Craig's defense leaned heavily on claims of marital strife, alleging Angela had suicidal tendencies and mental health issues. They argued that medical misdiagnosis and hospital errors, not poison, caused Angela's death. The defense tried to muddy the waters by attacking digital evidence and questioning forensic toxicology.
So basically, she did it to herself, and if she didn't, it was the hospital's fault. That's some next level victim blaming.
The classic blame it on the victim shuffle, dance moves that'll never go out of style, and awful defense strategies.
Prosecution's case, cold and calculated.
Prosecutors presented the Amazon orders, Google search logs, and hospital security footage as a murder blueprint. Medical experts testified on how cyanide was injected directly into Angela's IV. Emotional testimonies from Angela's sister and family hit the jury hard.
The prosecution didn't just paint a picture. They framed a mural of premeditation and cold-blooded intent.
Watching that evidence stack up, like watching a dentist pick apart a molar, painful but precise.
The verdict and sentence.
After 9 hours of deliberation, the jury found James Craig guilty on multiple counts, including first-degree murder, solicitation to commit murder, and tampering with evidence. Judge Shea Whitaker called the crime devastating to the victim's family and community. Craig was sentenced to life without parole on July 30th, 2025.
No parole, no mercy. Just the cold, hard sentence fitting a man who weaponized love into lethal betrayal.
Justice served cold, like cyanide in a protein shake.
Final courtroom moments.
Craig declined to testify, maintaining silence throughout the entire trial. His daughter broke down on the stand, telling the court, "I was supposed to be able to trust my dad. Instead, he'll forever be the villain."
The ultimate betrayal isn't just the murder, it's the fracture of trust within a family.
And in the story, the villain wears a white coat and a twisted smile.
Injustice, system failures, and social commentary. James Craig's conviction closed one chapter, but this case shines a glaring spotlight on systemic cracks. From delayed medical diagnosis to media silence, the machinery meant to protect failed Angela Craig.
Let's call it like it is. The system only moved because her family wouldn't shut up, and the digital breadcrumbs screamed louder than the victim ever could.
Racial bias and mental health blind spots.
While this case involved a white middle-class family, it's impossible not to ask, would the same swift justice and media attention have followed if Angela were a woman of color? Mental health symptoms like dizziness, nausea, confusion were often dismissed or misdiagnosed, reflecting how female patients' pain is too often minimized. Domestic and violence and toxic relationships hide in plain sight, and mental health failures contribute to tragic outcomes.
We don't just need better detection, we need better belief.
Because too many victims' cries get lost in the white noise of bias.
System failures and media coverage. Media fumbles make murder a soap opera, obscuring real victims behind dramatic headlines.
They turned Angela's death into a plot twist, not a tragedy. That's the kind of coverage that lets abusers breathe easy.
Angela Craig was more than a victim. She was a person failed by systems meant to protect her. Her story urges us to look beyond headlines and dig into the uncomfortable truths of healthcare, justice, and media bias.
And to all our detectives, keep your eyes sharp, your voices loud, and your hearts open, because justice doesn't end with a verdict. It begins with awareness.
If you or someone you know is experiencing abuse, poisoning, or needs support, we've linked trusted resources in the episode's notes. You're not alone. Help is out there.
And remember, sometimes the darkest places needs the brightest lights.
And that's all for today's Dead Serious and Sinister. Thank you for joining us as we unpack the darkness, one story at a time.
Until next time, dark detectives, stay curious, stay cautious, and stay sinister.
Good night, and keep hunting the truth.
Bye.